I can tell you, as I said last week on this show, my regular listeners will know, there is definitely a route forward for Mr. Trump. Not that I'm saying I support it or don't support it. I'm just telling you the facts. Since when is telling the facts offensive? I'll tell you what the route is that is open for Mr. Trump, and it involves 4 key elements. And the fraud is a distraction. You know, all these little fraud cases in Atlanta and Georgia and wherever, Michigan, and the little ones, they are a distraction. I'm going to give you the 4 solid routes which may or may not lead to a Trump victory, may or may not. Because the media don't decide who is president. The Electoral College does, and the Senate or the House has to approve it in Congress. And then the person sworn in on the 20th of January is the president. Well, the first thing I'm going to say in terms of routes is let's not forget, and remember, from my last weekend show, I said it 7 days ago. I said Georgia will come down to a recount and Pennsylvania will go to the Supreme Court. Now, already, before the election, in a case known as the Republican Party of Pennsylvania versus Bukvar, there is a constitutional case sitting in the Supreme Court that is not about fraud. So all these lines about even if fraud was determined, it's not enough votes to get rid of Trump. The case in the Supreme Court, which could potentially nullify the entire Pennsylvania election, is a constitutional case, which is why it could potentially nullify the entire Pennsylvania election. It's a case of Pennsylvanian state judiciary being accused by the Pennsylvania Republican Party of judicial activism in direct contravention of a law passed by the Pennsylvania legislature. That case, a constitutional case about judicial activism, which could nullify all of the mail-in ballots in totality, not the in-person ballots, all of the mail-in ballots, on a constitutional point, not on a fraud point. That case has been with the Supreme Court from before the election. It's called Republican versus Bukvar. Now, that case, Bukvar spelled Boockvar. That case, as I said, depending on how it goes, could swing Pennsylvania towards Trump. That's 20 electoral college seats. Add to that, the recounts in the various states, such as in Georgia, such as in Wisconsin, right? And again, that means because they're in recount, Georgia and Wisconsin, which is very surprising they went Democrat in the first place, it's very fine margins, could end up going to Trump. We don't know. And because of what happened with Gore and Bush in 2000, it didn't get resolved until a month from now, on December the 13th. I'm going to continue saying we don't know and pour cold water on this. So there is the Bukvar case. There are the recounts. If you add, hypothetically, Trump won Bukvar. That's 20 seats. If Trump gets Georgia and Wisconsin back again, and he's already got Alaska, and yesterday he won I think it's South Carolina or North Carolina. He won North Carolina, yeah? So if you add North Carolina, Alaska, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and there are voting challenges in Michigan and Nevada, then Trump's won. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying there are routes for him to win again. Do not listen to people who say to you it's all conspiracy. It is not. Just as it wasn't in the year 2000 when the shoe was on the other foot. And we, liberals, were complaining about a Bush victory. And Al Gore, a great man, continued to fight it for a month from today even. So there is a route. Now, I'll give you another point, right? So I've said the Bukvar case and I've mentioned the recounts, both very plausible and very legal routes forward for Mr. Trump. The other one is the Electoral College. Now, the very interesting thing with the Electoral College, and this is a quirk that I believe my British listeners will understand because we're in a very similar system. And that quirk is the following. In all of those key states where they are so close that some of them are having recounts and others, even if it isn't a recount, it's people are recognizing, my God, how did it get so close, right? The key thing is a bit like first past the post here, and the conventions in our political constitution aren't necessarily written in stone, which is why Mr. Johnson was able to suspend Parliament. Let me tell you this. In Arizona, in Pennsylvania, in Minnesota, and in Georgia. Now, Pennsylvania, I said to you, is going to go to it is in the Supreme Court. Minnesota, there are Minnesota and Georgia. Those are the other two, in Arizona. So that's 4 states. In those 4 states, the Electoral College is not legally obliged to follow the majority of votes in the state. In other words, the Electoral College could decide if Pennsylvania ruled against Biden or if another state found fraud. The Electoral College in these 4 states, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and Georgia, They could say, listen, we don't feel comfortable about this because of the fraud or because of the recounts or because of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision. We're not going to follow what the voters have said because they didn't know about the fraud or the Supreme Court decision before we had to approve of their vote. They are not legally obliged to follow the votes in their states. That's important information for people getting excited because that's the way the system works. And it's what conventions mean in politics, why we need political reform. I'm all for political reform, but you can't change the rules before you change the rules, if you get what I mean. So that's one other angle in which Trump could win. The final one, and this is a big one. General Flynn's lawyer, Sidney Porter, who is otherwise well regarded, has given a 6-minute speech that I posted on my social media feed yesterday, alleging flabbergasting and staggering criminal treason, which begins with this company called Dominion, which is the software company used to count the votes. And what General Flynn's lawyer, who's also now Trump's counsel, Sidney Porter, has been alleging on Fox News is that the level of fraud involved on the back end of this Dominion software would cancel out hundreds of thousands of votes. And she used the word criminal and said, I'm going to release the Kraken soon. Now, I don't know if she's telling the truth, but as a broadcaster, as an analyst, it's not my job. Well, it is my job because this is an opinion show, but if I was a news reporter, it wouldn't be my job to know whether she's telling the truth. It would be my job to report the news. You've got the chief counsel, General Flynn, who's now in the president's counsel as a well-known lawyer alleging criminal treason. Enough criminal treason, if you watch the video, to completely change the results because of software fraud. Now, that's a story. So I've just given you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 routes which Trump still has that he could use to win this presidency. They are 5 legal routes, and none of them are conspiracy theory. So please, when responding to this monologue, let's stop the ad hominem, play the ball and not the man, shoot the message and not the messenger, and stop going after me and just listen to what I'm saying and respond to my words.